Yeah, so we'll get started.
So you're saying we're going to have fast times through this show?
We'll see. I think I want to slow it down. Not slow cinema, slow it down, but
Oh,
I want
yeah.
to take our
Let's
time with this movie.
let's not Terrence Davies this into slow cinema and like really get contemplative and think about things. And
Wait,
yes,
or we could Terrence Malick it because I
we get
just
some we get some
today
curtains, we get some curtains and some light in here. There we go. Jessica
me.
Chastain's behind me, gyrating through linen. It's beautiful.
What are you doing here talking to me? No,
Right?
moments before we jumped on, this baby popped into my. I don't know if you can read
Mm,
that. It's The Tree of
I
Life,
can
the
hear.
extended edition, your
Yeah,
favorite film of all time
my favorite film of all time.
for an upcoming show. Not with
Oh,
us because
yeah.
I couldn't take the bleeding and the screaming. Um,
No,
yeah,
no.
but no, so it's all perfect. But yeah, we are here to talk about
Mm,
Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Criterion recently put out a
mm.
spiffy new Blu-ray version of it, and I watched a couple of the extra features. We'll talk about like what all involved in that later on.
Yeah.
But Don Shanahan of Every Movie Has a Lesson and Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast and 25YL,
Hmm.
welcome first of all. School's out for you. You are a bona fide educator. This is like the second or third movie we've talked about
Yeah.
relating to school. So this is exciting.
Oh yeah. As with age, I'm starting to identify with Mr. Hand more and more and more and more as I get older. It's gonna be a great show.
Me too. It's a weird phenomenon. I've watched this
Hmm.
movie a dozen or more times throughout my life. I think the first time I saw it when I was 13, I watched it with my mom, which
Mm,
that pool cabana scene was a lot of fun, let me tell you.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Because does your mom do the "Don't you ever do that to a woman ever in your life"? Does she give you that speech kind of thing?
no, it wasn't necessary. I think that's the benefit. I don't think boys need to be told not to be jerks. I think they just need to watch Fast Times at Ridgemont High
This is
because
true.
like every guy in this movie is a doofus.
Completely. Completely.
Like it's just as embarrassing for you as it is for the girls. So, just be a good
Hmm.
person. Um,
Right.
but yeah, we'll get back to that scene in a few minutes. But so Don, what's your
Hmm.
history with Fast Times?
I didn't discover this movie till college. I think I had heard about everyone hears about the Mr. Skin and the top nude scene of all time, and like that's unfortunately a teenage boy's legacy of like you haven't seen that movie. I'm like, no man, I haven't seen that movie. Like, oh my god, you got to watch it. And so I encountered it probably freshman year of college, 18 years old, and I'm like, okay, I see why it has the legacy that it does. So but no, I definitely didn't take it very. I guess I couldn't say I took it seriously, or I didn't. It didn't reverberate with me as a young watcher, probably because of just background. Like I'm not an urban shopping mall kid. I'm a gravel road farm kid who, did not have anything even remotely close to that kind of high school scene. I didn't. We had our own little ways of doing things where you had your pickup trucks. Like I think every small town has like their version of like the cruising around, their version of the point where everyone goes to make out and stuff like that. I certainly had a spot or two myself, but no, it didn't. I didn't absorb the era of it as the 80s, just before my time. I didn't absorb the Californianess, and I'm not a pot smoker, so I'm not a surfer, so it's a vibe beyond me when I saw it. Watching it years later, trying to knowing more of legacy, learning more about the history and Cameron Crowe, and just maybe it took just kind of just aged eyes to be like, oh wait, this is kind of where all these compass points are coming from, and seeing a little bit more of John Hughes's, you know the 80s that came after it, because this movie walked so Hughes and other people could run, and it's clearly there where this is the trailblazer. And now that I can kind of watch it with that in mind, like, oh, that's kind of where this kind of fits in and can be, my appreciation of it has grown. I don't know if I'd ever spring for the full Criterion of it, or I don't know if I can call it a cherished favorite, but it gets my utmost respect for sure. How about you told me you've watched it a dozen times. I have to think you're a diehard t-shirt front and line kind of guy.
No, it's one of those weird movies that my appreciation for it, my understanding of it has evolved over time. That's certainly true. The last time I watched it was this week, just yesterday. I think time means nothing
Hmm.
anymore. But and
Right.
then listening to some of the extra features, like listening to Amy Heckerling and Cameron
Hmm.
Crowe talk about it, because the it's different than a lot of the other teenage sex comedies that came out of this era, because this is like,
Yeah.
Porky's and
Hmm.
Porky's 2 and 3 and all of
Yeah.
the imitators. So it's very, and especially with that iconic scene with Phoebe Cates getting out of the pool that we talked about, it's
Hmm.
easy to lump it in with that. But I
Yeah.
remember even at 13 watching it and thinking, okay, and at the time it was not a problem because Jennifer Jason Leigh and Phoebe Cates were both years older than I was. So watching them get
Hmm.
naked in these kind of sexual situations, I was going to say sexy, but they're not really
No,
sexy,
not very sexy at
purposely
all.
show. So
Hmm.
it was kind of like, oh, well, I'm just the right age for this. Watching it later, I'm like, okay, I'm older than these people now, and I'm in my 20s. I'm like, this is
Hmm.
kind of weird. And wait a second, I never noticed there was a whole abortion storyline in this movie.
Hmm.
And then later, as we get older, as I got older, as we kind of referenced before, you start identifying with Mr. Hand. And
Yeah.
when you're 13, you're like, you're not even in high school yet. It's like, that is that how high school teachers are going to be? And I certainly had a
Hmm.
few of them, but
Hmm.
later on, I'm like, okay, yeah, this kid, this Jeff Spicoli is completely disrupting everything. And so, yeah, I'm going to stand my ground and, give as good as I get.
Yeah.
And I appreciated the lengths that he went to give Spicoli a chance, showing up to his house on the night of the big
Hmm.
graduation dance and saying, "You've wasted exactly 8 hours of my time, and that's being generous. So
Hmm.
we're gonna talk history." Is like,
Yeah.
I totally forgot my book in my locker, and
I
it's
want to
like,
see that 8 hour cut of the movie right there. Just those two in a room. That'd be awesome.
well, it's funny because I was listening to Heckling talk about it.
Hmm.
Apparently, Ray Walston, the great Ray Walston, and the
Hmm.
young Sean Penn, because Penn was always in character while
Yeah.
they were
Method
filming this
guy.
movie, right?
Hmm.
Um, and they did not get along at all.
I can
The,
imagine so. Yeah.
so watching the movie, next time I see it, I'm going to understand, oh, there is some real animosity going on there, and an earthquake apparently happening above my head. No,
It's okay.
yeah, it's a California movie, but
Exactly.
yeah, so it is one of those movies that changes over time, and my fondness for it only grows.
Hmm.
And now I'm starting to think I've got a couple of boys who are going to be teenagers in the not too distant future.
Hmm.
I hope they turn out more like Mark Ratner and less like Mike Damone. But when I
Yeah.
was younger, I kind of wanted to be Mike Damone.
I was just going to ask you, like, the easiest question I get out of an ensemble movie like this is who do you most identify with? Like, who were you in high school out of this rainbow of people?
I was probably Mark Ratner, the Brian
Okay.
Backer character. Well, I don't know if he was a movie nerd. He worked at a movie theater, which at the
Hmm.
time I thought was the coolest job ever. Shy around the girls, thought he could be something more than he was in terms of being cool. Hung out with a
Yeah.
guy that he thought was like the end all be all, and just took all the bad advice to heart and just fumbled his way through things. Um,
Hmm.
I wanted to be like Mike Damone because he had all the
Yeah.
right things to say. He's got some of the best lines in the movie.
That's it.
His attitude towards women is kind of pathetic, but then again, he's also kind of pathetic.
Hmm.
Much like, and this is something I hadn't picked up on until recently, Phoebe Cates's character, Linda, who is the best friend of Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, uh, she is, from the reputation this movie has, she's the sex pot, right? She's
Yeah.
got a boyfriend named Brad who lives in Chicago.
Or George.
Brad.
Because Brad's our guy. Wait. Or Brad's.
Brad's the boyfriend, the
Okay.
boyfriend, Phoebe Cates's boyfriend, who lives in Chicago, and
Right.
they're all serious and everything. But he doesn't come to the big senior dance. We never see him. We hear about how great their sex life is. But Brad is
Hmm.
kind of like the Chicago equivalent of a guy's Canadian girlfriend. You start to
Hmm.
wonder, is Linda as much of a phony as Mike Damone? Are they
Yeah.
equally inexperienced and clumsy and just trying to figure it all out and puffing their chests up, so to
Hmm.
speak?
Hmm. No, I'm with you on that. And when I couldn't help but watch this movie, and I watched it within the last 2 hours.
Hmm.
But no, I was probably Judge Reinhold's character, the guy. I didn't change that many jobs, but I was that guy who like worked before school in a work uniform, changed in the school parking lot, thought was happy enough to have a car, even though it was a beater of a car, and just like I enjoyed being an employee. Well, I got through my times of being more an employee and more aloof enough to girls where like, you know, steadiness here, this and that there. I took advice like Ratner did from older, upperclassmen and things like that, but I was never that shy or diminutive as he was. But I was probably more Brad, where I was the guy who's just overworked and overextended and just trying to, and floating along with a smile and enjoying himself. But not an athlete, not a stoner, kind of a float in the middle guy. That was more me.
Did you ever threaten to kick a customer's ass at one of these jobs?
No. I mean, I worked at McDonald's in my small town. I grew up in like I said, Gravel farm town kid. In my junior year of high school, they opened the town's very first McDonald's, and it was a huge deal because we had like Dairy Queen, the mom and pop breakfast and lunch place, and that was it. So when McDonald's shows up, it's like the city has come to, shout out to Peatone, Illinois. And I was part of the inaugural crew of this McDonald's. It's still standing to this day, thank God. And but no, so I had worked a year before that at another McDonald's to kind of get ready for this one. Like, ooh, I was trained and ready to go. And my favorite spot to work was the drive-throughs, because you're the guy in the headset talking to people outside. And guys would always come up in the drive-through knowing I was working, like, Don, give me a fucking cheeseburger, and my manager's listening. I'm like, Sam, I'm sorry, sir. I'm not exactly sure what your order is. And I have to like play it all cool and be like, fucker, just pull over and knock it off. And like, I have to be, so I was Brad. I was put to all that by friends and neighbors and buddies. So,
Wow. The cool thing about that is that's an episode that I could see in a movie like Fast Times.
Oh, yeah.
And Cameron Crowe, I don't know if you know about the history of this movie, but I assume you've seen Almost Famous, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was a movie that he directed that was based on his actual life as a teenage journalist for Rolling Stone. And part of that career was he actually went back to high school undercover as a student because he had this babyish kind of face, and he collected all these kind of anecdotes and just absorbed the atmosphere. And he wrote this book, which, for as popular as this movie is out of print for like a long time. You have to pay almost $1,000 to get a copy on Amazon.
I did try to look it up, like we're both library guys, and I was trying to look like on the Hoopla app and it's just not something you find. But no, like I think that Spicoli and the dude's shirt off scene in the restaurant, I think that's the equivalent to like, guys, come on, like I have to be the straight arrow and they're all having fun while I work,
Yeah, the no shirt, no shoes, no dice, and Brad's like, live it, know it, love it, or whatever. But that's why I think this movie feels more real to me. I mean, it's definitely the conceit of a film. It's an hour and a half long. It's a complete year in the life, high school year in the life. You start off the mall right before school starts, and it ends with the mall closing down. You begin with, oh my God, why can't I think of their name? We Got the Beat.
Oh, I don't know my music that well. You got me beat there. Great soundtrack, but I'm not a music guy. I know the song and I can hear it in my head.
I know, but this is I know it's Jane Wheatland.
It's purpose. Okay.
Yeah, damn it. Everyone who's watching this or listening right now is going to be like, you idiot. But no, I'll remember it before the episode's over, I'm sure. And then we end with
your Criterion cred right now, man. Good job.
And then we end with Oingo Boingo, the great Oingo Boingo, Danny Elfman. And that's this movie. I'm not usually a fan of films that have like the pop soundtrack, like the needle drops every other scene. But I think my problem with that is that it's usually modern films that are trying to capture an era by putting whatever was popular on the radio back then. This song was very much of its time, and a lot of this was newer music or kind of undiscovered stuff that was blowing up.
Yeah, a comparison we can put here is like the mall scene in Wonder Woman 1984, where you're playing a greatest hits, you're putting every fad, you dial it to 12, every fad, everything you see in every little corner and every little detail, and then the soundtrack needle drops that we've all heard 1,000 times, where there's a good chance real life of that era was just a heck of a lot more casual and subdued than dialed to 12. And that moseying around the mall, establishing, montage in this movie is exactly what you need. And even like you said, with calling this a collection of anecdotes, really feels true, because I know we got the big abortion scare middle where you're like, ooh, geez, that's a curveball of curveballs. But nothing feels like hugely, overemphasized for like shout out loud kind of comedy. Like even the pizza scene, which is very unique to a movie. You don't see that in lots of places, or like little episodes of that, and just the Spicoli antics. None of those are really like, hey, look at me, look at how rapturously funny this is. No, it's just sly, clever, anecdotal, little episode here, little episode there. They weave it together by connecting characters. And I think movies today, I think of things like Superbad, where everything has to be like, we'll have anecdotes, we'll have moments, we'll have a one wild night kind of thing, but they have like, it just, they take a moment that they think is funny and over amplify it to be like loud and obnoxious for the sake of being loud and obnoxious. And this movie doesn't do that, luckily.
Yeah, and I think you used the word clever there for a second. I mean, that whole interaction with Mr. Hand and Spicoli, there's a few
Oh
of
yeah.
those instances, but you never get the feeling that those characters are spending their out of class time trying to think about how to mess with the other characters.
Oh.
They're just, Mr. Hand is trying to teach his class, and then Spicoli, he devotes a little bit of time to it because Mr. Hand's thing is like, this is my time, my class. And then Spicoli's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, isn't this kind of our time? And so he orders a
I love it.
pizza, like you mentioned, and has it come to the class. That whole thing where Mr. Hand, you can see his frustration and then his wheels turning, and
Mm-hmm.
then the light going on in Ray Walston's eyes, like,
Oh,
I know how to fix this. And then he
yeah.
says, it's our time, yours, mine, and the entire class. Everyone grab a slice of pizza. And then you see the look of
Mm-hmm.
dejected confusion on Spicoli's face. Like, I didn't even get any pizza.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the one thing that kind of weirded me out, and I know it's a trope of high school movies, but in
Mm-hmm.
this one, it really bugged me.
Okay.
Half the cast are probably just out of high school. I know Phoebe Cates was like 18 and Jennifer Jason Leigh was
Yeah.
19 or 20.
Yeah.
Everyone else is like 25,
Oh, I
26
know.
years old, playing like
Yeah.
freshmen in high school.
Yeah. Like Judge Reinhold at like 6'4". It's just like you just look at him, and Beverly Hills Cop is what, 2 years from now, where he just like looks out of place. And even Robert Romanus,
Mhm.
he's just probably a little too cool for school, as like you said, a high school junior who just happens to have all these tickets and great chest hair, and like, come on now. And of course, Forrest Whitaker is a brick house, so he's probably 38 years old in
Well,
this
no,
movie,
he was only, I think I got the math right. He was only like 19 or 20. He was
Okay.
around that age. But I
I
guess
had,
he just always looked like he
yeah,
was an
like
older,
yeah.
imposing guy.
So I keep thinking of that silly joke in 21 Jump Street. We're like, dude, you look like you're 40 when someone goes to Jonah Hill, like trying to be undercover in high school, and Jonah Hill does look like he's 40. But no, I had heard what you heard, that Phoebe Cates and Nicholas Coppola were the youngest people in this cast, and everyone else was skirting higher. And I remember reading some of them. I was browsing IMDb like for the trivia, like all the different people who read for different parts, and someone said, I read, I don't know how true it is because IMDb can be hit or miss, but like Christopher Reeve read for Spicoli, and I'm like, 4 years after Superman, you're Superman, and of course you're the pillar of like American great chins and things like that. I just cannot picture some of these people like Christopher Reeve playing anybody in this movie, and he would have to be like, same thing, like 26, 27 by that point.
See, this is the reason I want Julian Assange to be freed, because somewhere out there is a tape, a
Oh
musty
my
old
gosh.
VHS of Christopher
Yeah.
Reeve auditioning for Jeff Spicoli. I have to
Yeah.
see that.
Did you ever see that? I know this is a sidebar. Did you ever see the Saturday Night Live skit where Christopher Reeve is hosting Saturday Night Live, and they're doing these Superman auditions, and it's like John Belushi,
Yeah,
it's
Burt
like Joe
Reynolds.
Piscopo,
Okay.
and Christopher Reeve, and like two schmucks and Christopher Reeve are reading for the part of Superman. Oh no, Belushi's playing Dick Donner, and two other. It's like, I think I don't know who are playing. It might be Kevin Nealon or somebody else. Anyway, they're like trying to read for the part of Superman, and everyone and Reeve is bombing, and they're like, even though he looks perfect, they're like, can you catch a bullet with your teeth? And like Christopher Reeve keeps missing, and the other guys gets it, and it's a guy who looks like nothing like the part. And you're like, well, I guess it's you then, Chris. Thanks for coming, and that kind of thing. I can only imagine like this scene. Like I can't see Reeve doing that at all.
No, I think it's the Go-Go's. I think that's the band that opens the movie.
Okay, okay.
We got the beat. If I'm wrong, again, please send all hate mail hate mail to Don. Yeah, he
Yes,
sent it to you.
listed on the
Yes.
bottom. Yeah,
Yeah.
please. I'll take it. Yeah. Put it right next to your Tree of Life reactions, please. That'd be perfect.
Lovely.
No.
But I gotta say, getting back to that pool cabana scene that I
Hmm.
referenced earlier, um, Stacy, the Jennifer Jason Leigh character,
Hmm.
she's kind of interested in Damone, the bad boy, and they go back to this little pool house to change, and they end up having really quick sex.
Really
And
quick.
like the two most awkward, oh my God, I think this happened in the same year. The two most awkward moments I ever had with my mom, we watched Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Hmm.
And then I think it was later that year in the fall, if that's right, we saw Ghost, the pottery wheel scene.
Okay. Okay. I could better get through Ghost than the Cabana. If you pick my poison, I'll take Pottery Wheel.
Well, it's even worse because when he finishes and he says, I think I came, I looked at my
Yeah.
mom and said, what does that mean?
Oh dear.
And
Uh-huh.
she had to explain it's when a man ejaculates. I'm like,
Okay.
oh. And then I had to rewind the tape in my head and remember what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is way more information than anybody needs to know. But it just
Yeah.
goes to show my deep history with this movie.
I
But
hope your mom is listening to the show, by the way, as well.
she'll never watch this. But
Okay.
no, I think again, watching this now as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
there's
Yep.
after once that messiness is finished up and he just kind of like puts his pants on and leaves, the camera is
Mm-hmm.
completely on Jennifer Jason Leigh lying naked, sitting up on that couch, just
Mm-hmm.
kind of confused and what the hell happened, because she was kind of the instigator of this
Oh yeah.
uh situation that they had, which comes back in one of the most hurtful things exchanges I recall seeing in any movie, because that's how she gets pregnant.
Yeah.
She goes to tell Damone and he's like, it was your idea, you wanted it more than I did. And she said,
Mm-hmm.
take that back, because even though they were kind of like playing with each other, it was
Yeah.
still the mutual responsibility of what happened. And when he does not turn up to drive her to the appointment and come up with the half the money, and then Brad shows up as the kind of the
Mm-hmm.
hero older brother, and they have each other's confidence.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. You're not going to see this in your average teenage sex comedy.
No, and that's what makes this also a time capsule, is the looseness of those 80s, that you could play, that these things, these anecdotes and these episodes are things that easily happened. This is like pre-AIDS, and all that, the sexual changes of re-education that we went through that decade. But you could not do that today. You could not do this movie post Me Too today. Closest you're going to get is Eighth Grade with Bo Burnham a couple years ago, where that's not flirting with anywhere near the sexual levels of this one is. That movie has that one car scene of a boy trying to make out, and we are all in our seats cringing, like, don't, no, please don't happen, please don't happen. Because, and it's odd that we're having that very volatile inner reaction in eighth grade to a 12 or 13-year-old, but we're like, oh, but she's really going for it as a 15-year-old in this movie. So like, it's amazing what in our heads 3 or 4 years of math can do a difference for us in terms of accepting the what am I trying to say, the female initiative, that, or lack thereof, in compare the two movies, where it's fascinating that we accept it there and we are scared to death of it in another spot.
Yeah, and it's I wonder, because I wasn't a teenager when I wasn't the target demo for this movie when it came out. When it came out, I was 5, but
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that nuance, how the specialness and the things that differentiate this movie from its, the people who are kind of swimming around or the movies,
Mm-hmm.
how much did that resonate with people, or versus how much was it like, oh wow, we're really seeing more of Jennifer Jason Leigh than we have, the whole movie. This is kind of hot,
Yeah.
because this was kind of like weirdly marketed. It found its feet, as far as it wasn't like a breakout success. It came relatively quickly, but it was mostly, I think, through word of mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like there's always, and this movie has that legacy where it seems like once a decade there's some movie that's like your seminal teen, just how the inside look at the sexual confusions and sexual moments of different generations. And and some of them are set in that period and some of them go to another period, but have very much the sensibilities of when it was made. And 10 years before this was Last Picture Show, by Peter Bogdanovich, where that might be like 1950s Texas, but it's a ton of like, just that sexual confusion and sexual discovery, or that pushiness of where people are at and what they're going to dive into or not dive into. And here's a movie doing the same thing 10 years later, but and that weird semi-autobiographical vibe to it and all. So,
and in the decade after this movie came out, you've got, well, it's toward the tail end, but American Pie,
yeah.
and then Superbad, which you mentioned was sort of the early 2000s. I don't know what
today. I'm
not sure what today's would be.
Well, if we go dark in the 90s, would you do something like Larry Clark's Kids?
Very much so.
For being more of an edge than, because American Pie is pure farce. It's not, no one goes back to that movie going, oh my God, I learned so much, like.
Well, but I'm kind of going by the pop cultural touchstones.
That's fair. Yeah. Because no one's pulling out Clark, Kids from the DVD shelf. Yeah.
That was an interesting turn of phrase, but no. Because like American Pie was on the cover of Rolling Stone, and this movie literally feels like a Rolling Stone movie because it was written by a journalist who used to work there.
Yeah.
I think I was going to say something and I completely lost my train of thought. Okay. So let's jump to this. You are a teacher.
I am.
I don't know that you have. Do people talk about this movie or movies like it? Do you think that you could, we're talking about like a movie like this probably couldn't get made today. Do you think it could be shown, or would people watch it? Do you know if people talk about it from the younger generation?
I like, well, the kids I teach now were born post 9/11. They don't know what this movie is. You get those, I guess the millennial generation of like the film bros, I call those people out for just the Christopher Nolan lovers and Quentin Tarantino lovers of today. We know who they are.
Hey.
I know. We're the older film bros. But no, I feel like those, I don't want to call them social justice warriors, and I don't want to call them all that, but I bet they turn their nose to this movie. I bet no matter how much this movie is a female directed take on the male gaze, if I'm going to get technical like that, and I know this is two middle-aged white guys trying to have that conversation, but I feel like the people of today would throw this movie out. Like, they'll look at it as the discovery point of all these actors, but go, ooh, yeah, that hasn't aged well. Or the same way we probably think American Graffiti hasn't aged well, or it's its own little time capsule. And I feel like that's giving this movie a bad rap, because I think this movie you can watch now and learn. Sure, the mole culture and the music is different, but the problems and the issues I feel like are still the same, just without cell phones. Where I think young people could get a lot of this movie if they tried it and watched it. Is it something I would completely recommend to a class of my 8th graders? Not quite. No. But if I'm doing a high school class someday, I'd be like, you know what, guys, if you really want to see what it was like for some people back then, including most of your teachers, go watch something like that. And where the freedom and the frolic is there, and the energy of like, man, I can do so much. I'm young. It's conquest. Seeking conquest versus seeking love in this movie, and all of that energy is great and demonstrable to people who watch it, but they might still go, when the abortion scare alone, I think, would curveball everyone into being sour for this movie.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting distinction there, because as problematic as some aspects of this movie might be, I would say that anybody who sits down and actually watches it, I'm not in anybody else's head except my own, but sure, I would have a hard time imagining someone, even as progressive as they might be today, actually watching the movie and coming away by saying, yeah, this film has all the wrong attitudes. I think it was very advanced in terms of its politics for its day. I can understand someone describing Fast Times to somebody else and saying it's an early 80s sex comedy, and it's the scene also where Phoebe Cates get topless. I can see people saying, I am never going to watch that movie.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like everything else.
I think the other thing I'm thinking of is, a guy with the same thing, like I said at the open of the show, as a guy with a rural conservative background, even though I'm not rural and conservative now, no one from my hometown watches this movie, because same thing. It's just,
they do. They just don't talk about it.
Well, they go to that one scene and then that's it. But the mall vibe and the California vibe, it's just beyond them. They would rather go watch Varsity Blues. Like that's even though that's Texas and football, that's closer to the pickup truck vibe I grew up in versus the cruise around mall stuff.
Well, what's interesting though is that even with that, and I understand what you're saying, the
Yeah.
point of view you're coming from, but I could see even, not like a Bible thumping Christian conservative, but
Hmm.
someone with a more conservative bent watching this movie and still coming away feeling good about the decisions the characters make. Because yes, it
Yeah.
is a sex comedy, but a lot of what it is looking at teenage hormones, what that can lead to,
Hmm.
and the consequences of it. Not
Yeah.
only abortion, but also just this feeling, because Stacy has a complete character arc in terms of her own sexuality.
Hmm.
She's like, from fake filleting carrots in the lunchroom because she's
Hmm.
curious about it and she wants to be good, with the guy,
Hmm.
to that weird experience in the dugout or the point, which
Hmm.
I hadn't picked up on the fact that the point was just some grimy dugout, right? With
Oh
surf
yeah.
Nazis, graffiti all over
Yeah.
the place.
Love the graffiti in the whole movie, by the way. The motif that shows up many places,
Oh yeah, and Heckerling said that was one of her favorite details was putting
Hmm.
that up. But just the idea at the end of the movie when she ends up, spoiler alert for this 40-year-old film, she ends up with Mark Ratner in a
Hmm.
relationship. She realizes that's what she wants. She wants, I think she
Yeah.
flat out says it, I don't want sex. I want, romance. I want
Hmm.
love. And during those weird post like the end freeze frame credit kind of things,
Yeah.
which Amy Heckerling also said she didn't want. She wanted the
Mm.
ending that she had imagined, but she also acknowledges the ending she had imagined was kind of terrible. So the studio stepped in and said, we're going to put these
Okay.
funny titles. But yeah,
Yeah.
they
Very
said,
American Graffiti-esque. Yeah.
right. They said Stacy and Ratner are still together, but they haven't gone all the way.
Yeah.
So it's
So
just kind of this sweet idea that sex is always going to be there, and it's important when you're young until you've experienced it, and then when you experience it, you're like, yeah, there's other stuff to pay attention to.
do you think the consequences of this movie are stiff enough? That's something I watch. Like watching it this week, I'm like, that abortion angle, which hit punches like a ton of bricks in the middle, still kind of magically gets dusted away in two buddies like being okay with themselves a little bit, like having their little gym, the locker room tiff, and then a short apology later. Like, would that really repatch the bridge? And then does the would the public shame be greater on the girl or the guy? I feel like, unfortunately, because of social media, like issue when those things would happen, it would get out so bad and be so much worse than what this movie shows. Or even the silly job stuff. Like I feel like the consequences would be further and thicker than the movie gets off on. I don't know.
Yeah,
What
I
do you
mean,
think?
like as far as the abortion thing, I wasn't unfortunately paying attention. It was something I had meant to look out for, but then I think I just missed it because I was caught up in the scene.
Mhm.
When Ratner confronts Damone in the locker room,
Yeah.
I don't remember if the abortion was even a topic. I
No,
feel
I don't
like
think
I feel like
Ratner
he found out
knows.
that he had slept with Stacy,
Yeah.
and that kind of got around. But I don't know if, because unless
I don't think
Stacy,
the
I don't think
abortion got
she,
around.
yeah, because I don't think
Yeah.
she told anybody except for Brad, and
No.
he's not going to go spreading it around. Linda goes and spray paints little prick all over
Hmm.
Damone's locker and stuff. So maybe that's how that got started. Like, oh,
Yeah. I don't think the
Stacy got
abortion is
jilted.
public knowledge, but I feel like it'd be hard to keep that secret today, where the
Uh,
consequences would be stiffer and worse, or
yeah,
the
if
the
yeah,
the waves of ramifications.
the wrong person finds out, yes, it's
It's
everywhere.
gone. Yeah.
But as far as the ramifications, yeah, I feel like, even though Damone and Ratner patch things up,
Hmm.
they do so in a way that uh, Ratner and Stacy has this kind of moment too. There's a great parallel
Hmm.
in these two friendships because Mark Ratner, at the dance with Damone's kind of got his hat in his hand. And even though he's trying to plays it off all cool, you realize
Hmm.
that he's just been forgiven by his best and possibly only friend.
Right.
You see that in the locker room when, after the shoving match is over and the principal's broken it up or whatever,
Hmm.
Damone kind of like slams his head back against the wall, and you realize all the stuff that he's been through, the abortion, having no money. And now the one guy who would ever stick up from him
Hmm.
has turned his back on him. You're like, wow, this guy's completely lost. And so with Linda, when Stacy kind of helps her through the whole breakup letter with Brad or whatever,
Mhm.
there is that kind of a look, like Linda puts herself together like, okay, let's go out to the dance, and Stacy's like, yeah, I guess you do this is what you need. I'm
Yeah.
still your friend. You're great.
Yeah. I don't know. It's that kind of thing. No, going back to Mr. Hand to kind of go there, I admit as a school teacher, oh yeah, we use that line of time, of quick, I'm not saying it's full on sarcasm because I don't know. Mr. Hand slyly weaves in plenty of sarcasm in the way he'll kind of push back to the student who's trying to be a wise ass and all that. And I do love Mr. Hand. If I'm ranking movie teachers, he's top 5. It's fun.
Um, I don't know if we've ever talked about this. Have you seen the movie Better Off Dead with John Cusack?
Mm-mm, mm-mm. 80s are a hole for me. I have some makeup work to do.
Well, this is one of my favorite movies. It was in fact the theme of my wedding.
Okay.
It's a John Cusack absurdist comedy from 1985. But so this reference will mean nothing to you, Don, but maybe to someone out there watching this.
Okay.
The teacher, Mr. Vargas, who took the class on the tour of the
Mm-hmm.
morgue,
Also in Ghost, right?
also in
Yeah.
Ghost, yes.
Also,
Oh my God. Wow, I
right.
didn't even pick up on that. That guy's been part of my sexual awakening. But no, the wonderful Vincent Chiavelli was also in Better Off Dead as another high school teacher. And the girl who played Brad's boyfriend, no, yeah, Brad's girlfriend, sorry.
Yeah, the coworker at the restaurant with her, the
Yes.
blonde.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Sorry, earlier I think when I mentioned the letter, I said Brad, I meant Doug.
you did.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
Doug, that's the one. That's the one.
right. So the girlfriend, Brad's girlfriend and soon to be ex, was played by Amanda Wyss from Nightmare on Elm Street and also Better Off Dead. So you got 2 Better Off
Okay.
Dead
Okay.
alum here, and her character gives a similar breakup speech in Better Off Dead,
Go
which I hadn't
figure.
noticed before. Yeah.
Wait, what year is it? Better 85?
Yeah.
You said?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So, and that's the other thing is like this movie is lousy with like they will soon be star cameos. We mentioned Nicolas Cage, Anthony
Mhm.
Edwards is in Spicoli's crew, Eric Stoltz. One of the 2 cheerleaders that we see, who's the doomed cheerleaders who they can't catch a break as far as people not giving them crap. The brunette one was Pamela Springsteen, who was the killer
Okay.
from the later sequels from the Sleepaway Camp movies, those great late 80s slashers.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And kid sister to Bruce Springsteen.
About that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I always notice Eric Stoltz and Anthony Edwards in this one, because I think it was Stoltz's first. I think it's Stoltz's debut. Edwards has done some stuff, but yeah, it's fun to see them in here. And yeah.
Yeah, it's also weird just to see Nicolas Cage. Like he shows up, I think, in 2, maybe 3 scenes just as like a background player. But yeah, it's hard not to notice him. Yeah, so I do want to talk briefly about some of these extras on the Criterion disc.
Yes, please.
There are, because some of it's recycled from like previous DVD releases. Like there's a commentary and a documentary from 1999. But 2 of the cool new things, and I listened to them this morning. One is a 1982, I guess, AFI Q&A with Amy Heckerling, because she came out of the American Film Institute. She kind of went back, and some, I guess, program members were listening to her talk about the making of the film. And it's great because you get to hear her perspective on being a first-time filmmaker and working in this, with a studio system. And I know it's not a universal experience because everyone kind of has them, but I was surprised, especially with a lot of the talk that we have today about, female filmmakers in Hollywood and how unfair everything is. Just listening to her talk about working in the studio system, it sounded no different than a lot of first-time like male filmmakers I've heard, talking about that. Now, she didn't get into, did she ever ask grab by an executive or anything, but it sounded like it was, pretty even keel. So just to listen to that perspective from that time was very cool. And then the other one was an interview, because it was done last year. It's a Zoom call with Cameron Crowe, Amy Heckerling, and Olivia Wilde, who
did 8th grade. No, that's not. She didn't.
No,
she did
Booksmart.
Booksmart, yeah. And that feels like a movie that could be a version of now, like sexual discovery, girls being girls, whatever you want to call that. That's
And it's interesting because she opens up by saying that Fast Times at Ridgemont High is not only one of the formative movies of her youth,
Hmm.
but also the template, like the model that she was trying to mold eighth grade. Not we keep doing this
I know.
book
Sorry, book
smarts
smart, right?
into. And she shares some anecdotes about the making of that movie, and Crowe and Heckerling are sharing the kind of parallel stories. It is kind of cool, although unfortunately Olivia Wilde, she speaks in that neo kind of corporatist Hollywood jargon that kind of bothers the crap out of me, so I had to
Okay.
filter through that to get to the stories.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a very cool conversation.
Yeah. Did you ever see during the pandemic last year that all-star table read for this movie?
No.
Oh, so a year ago, this is let me see if I got the YouTube right here. I'll give you a cast list. So this was last August. A bunch of people came together. Dane Cook arranged a dais of stars to do a table read of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Morgan Freeman was the narrator. Um, Sean Penn came back to play. Who did he did not play Spicoli? Shia LaBeouf on actual weed all show because you just see him puffing away, puffing away, puffing away on YouTube. Played Spicoli. Ray Liotta played Mr. Hand. You have John Legend, Jennifer Aniston, Jimmy Kimmel, Brad Pitt, Julie Roberts. All kind of came in and played, like, did a table read on a multi-screen Zoom of Fast Times, and it's awesome.
Okay, I am
I'll send it to
officially,
you.
thank you, and I'll post
Yeah.
that link down in the description. I am officially disappointed in Criterion for not digging up that little gem and adding it to this
Yeah.
disc.
Yeah. Let's see here. Last September. So I don't know how recent was the disc drop here for
Like
Fast Times.
a few weeks ago.
Oh, they could have fit that on there
They
for sure.
totally could have. Damn it.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, as packages go, like especially if this is your first time, like I said, I've owned this on like VHS and DVD and all that
Mhm.
stuff, and parts of the VHS were really worn out.
I've heard.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So just bad technology back then. That's
It
the
is
only
bad
explanation.
technology. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we have this beautiful streaming stuff now. So yeah.
And
But no,
Mr. Skin.
this movie would be fantastic to put on Criterion. It's worthy, and I want to go borrow it from the library and dig it up. That just the commentary. I would love to hear Heckerling and Crowe go back and forth, and to see what Heckerling has been able to do since then. Obviously, Clueless becomes the next seminal thing she did that to define the '90s in a stylistic way that she defined the '80s, and of course Crowe, whether his recent stuff is doing all that good, but he had his heyday of just making, yeah, you use the word the best, anecdotal things, because even Almost Famous feels anecdotal. Yeah, there's little big moments we remember, but it's just along for the ride kind of thing. And by the time he tries to do something bigger than along for the ride, like Jerry Maguire or some of the other things he's done, it's become hit or miss for him because maybe he's best at just staying anecdotal.
And I always wonder about that too, especially like with stand-up comics. I mean, we were mentioning Dane Cook a little bit ago,
Hmm.
who, it's verboten to say that you find him funny. I love Dane Cook.
I like Dane Cook. Yeah.
But it's a problem you see a lot with stand-up comedy. The struggling comedian who's drawing from their life and like being uproariously funny, and
Hmm.
like rappers have this sometimes too. When your art is all about presenting your life, and then you blow up and you make it big, and then your problems are all like, do I take the Mercedes or I take the Ferrari? The Mercedes broke
Hmm.
down on the way to the premiere. That kind of stuff. It becomes a little bit harder to relate to the everyman.
Yeah.
I wonder if there are like fabulously wealthy people who love like these comedians later stuff like Jerry Seinfeld, but just can't relate to the earlier, I'm struggling to come up with.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that for sure.
Oh,
Hmm.
but yeah, so Fast Times at Ridgemont High, closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. This deserves the seminal classic status it gets. It, and I think it's still an important film for sure. I think it deserves the spine it's getting from Criterion. It deserves the placement as not just a time capsule, but a relatable thing to, because I think we still, even today, cell phones and internet be damned. We have kids who, are figuring things out with their friends next to them and trying to work jobs and trying to come up with a social life and trying to find their niche and their place. And if I was doing the whole every movie has a lesson thing here, it's that duel between conquest just to get some, just to get an outlet or receive that amazingness that is sexual revolution and explosion, but that the idea that that pendulum swing between conquest and then love. Like, it's nice to see at the end of the movie that relationships are winning, whether it's the friendship and platonic kind or the romantic kind, and or even the relationships between brother and sister. Because I really like the Brad and Stacy dynamic of the movie the most, and it's yeah, it punches well even still today. Like, I don't think it's, I know times have changed, and maybe the era of things have been made harsher, and like I said, with consequences, more biting in terms of commentary, but I don't think the resonance of this thing has been lost a bit, and the coolness level is still high, because my goodness, Sean Penn's hilarious. So
Yeah,
yeah.
he really is. And I think, you mentioned technology. I'm trying to think of a spot where, this movie would benefit from, or someone could watch this and be like, well, why didn't you just Google that? Or, why didn't you just pull out your cell phone?
Yeah,
Everything kind of works,
it
it's,
does. Yeah.
yeah. But, well,
Well, that's another thing. I think a lot of movies today feel like they have to be super referential to things, like where, like, you have these characters in high school still today being played by 25-year-olds that have to look like they're worldly and smarter than the room. Like, they're the, like, every character in movies today is Mike, like, knows every concert, knows every song, can hook you up with this, hook you up with that, the jack of all trades, master of none. And every character, it feels like in teen comedies now, is Mike, when sometimes you just have Stacy's that have a shitty job, who are just trying to figure things out, who are practicing fellatio on carrots, who need a little help. We have too many movies have everyone hyper knowledgeable, that are just, that fuddle their way through encounters for the sake of comedy in movies, but are maybe too knowledgeable and know too much because they've been overexposed by the availability of information today. So yeah, maybe the Google thing is they're watching fellatio on dildo videos on YouTube more than carrots in the cafeteria.
well, I think
Probably.
you're hitting on something there too. This is the pre-irony teenage movie.
Yes.
There's an
Great
earnestness
word for it.
to this movie where
Yeah.
if there's a know-it-all, they're the exception and not the rule.
Hmm.
Like
And
there's
in
not a
this
lot of
movie,
snark in this movie.
no, and in this movie, he's the villain of the movie, I want to say. Like, I think by the end of this movie, Mike's the guy, like, ooh, we liked him at the beginning being the cool guy, but that's not the guy we really should be. And we get that by the end of the movie.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's I think this is something that's kind of evergreen. I mean, I don't know.
Hmm.
The fashions changed. The music kind of iffy because the 80s are
Yeah.
still, well, I'm almost 44. I'm saying the 80s are still
Hmm.
cool, right, guys,
Right.
kids?
Right.
But
Things are cyclical enough. Yeah.
yeah. So, but thank you, Don, for talking
Hmm.
about Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It's been fun, and congratulations on making it through another school year.
Woo, you bet.
All right. Well, go out, get some iced tea, and enjoy a few laps around the pool.
I sure will, man. Take care.
All right. Catch you later.